Hi, it's Jude from headfi.org, CES 2012 with Eric Palonen at Sennheiser. I want to talk about the Sennheiser HD700, which is probably the headphone that most headfiers want to know about at CES. So tell us how this compares to, say, the 800 and maybe the 650 below it.
What's an HD800? I only work here now. So the 800, as we all know, has a very specific design. It was a radical departure from anything Sennheiser had ever done. And then below it, you had the 650, which was very traditional Sennheiser design, something we had used several generations of products. So we said, there's a pretty big gap there. What can we do to get in between there and use some elements from both? You know, the 600 had a very liquid, smooth bass response. The 800 had the super wide sound stage. The goal was to get in there and create something that was would kind of marry the two and provide a nice bridge between those two price points and two product offerings. The 700, as a result, is in fact, although it borrows parts from the other family members, is actually a sound signature all its own. It's quite unique, and I think you got a chance to listen to it a little bit. And
I did. I mean, on the continuum between, say, the 650 and the 800, if you could put them on a line like that, I'd say it's closer to the 800 than it is the 650. It's for that reason that I love it so much, because then you can drive it with anything. So can you talk about some of the specifications differences, because it is easier to drive than an 800?
It is, in fact, and that's probably the #1 question we get from the headfi community. Why did you go with 150 ohms versus 300? 300 is pretty typical for a Sennheiser audiophile platform. The reason was market feedback. In fact, they wanted to create something that was I don't want to say compatible, but something that played very well with a lot of the other devices that are out there. As we all know, the HD800, when it sounds at its best, it's amazing. But you have to have a pretty good ear and the desire to really put the effort into it to get the sound you want. And the HD700, I think, is a little bit easier to do that as a result, because it's very close related to the impedance, the amount of gain you need to really make this thing sing.
Right. I found that I can use it with just about any of my setups and get something akin to 800 class sound, but with any of my setups. Whereas with the 800, I have to use it with maybe a few different setups. Yeah. I have a lot more amps that I can't use the HD800 with than I have amps I'd be, willing to use it with. But with this, it was just the opposite. Yeah. I could use it with just about anything. So can you tell us about some of the driver design, the materials, because this feels like metal here. I know this is like some sort of advanced thermoplastic material, but can you tell us about the construction?
Certainly. So we'll go through some of the specs here. Let's start at the transducer. The frequency response is 10 hertz all up to 40,000. And this is not a ring radiator like the HD800. The HD800 had the rather large diaphragm, 56 millimeter with the hole cut in the middle. This is a 40 millimeter, but it's actually a very new design for us.
Is it an all new 40 millimeter driver? I mean, it's a common size, but I might have assumed that it was used somewhere else. Is it used in any other product?
It is exclusive to the HD700. Now, the transducer itself has a patent-pending vented magnet system. What that's going to do is manage airflow away from the back of the diaphragm. As we all know, a speaker diaphragm will move air, and that's how we're essentially perceiving sound in layman's terms. The air, once in the cavity of the ear cup, has the potential to touch the diaphragm again, and essentially you're creating some unwanted resonances. By managing the airflow from the backside and away from the diaphragm, you can reduce that significantly. Also with the ported chambers here. Yes, it is an open air design, of course, but this specific shape and size actually was created to work in tandem with the transducer and manage that airflow. Again, so you're minimizing the amount of resonances in here and on the transducer itself. The result, as you've heard, is very pure. That's probably the best way I can use to describe it. Now, the materials mentioned, as you just pointed out, we have a couple different materials here. I like to start with, exactly. I like to start with the headband and talk about that. It's a vibration-reducing headband frame. This chassis right here there's a silicone layer right here. Underneath is a composite, in addition to metal and microfiber. This combination, when sandwiched together, acts basically as a shock absorber. Again, when the transducer is creating sound does move better through a solid medium than it does through air, and there's a tendency in most other headphones for sound to creep up through the headband into the opposite transducer and vice versa. By eliminating that, you're hearing, again, just the transducer at work, you're hearing your music at work, you're hearing the recording, not the byproduct of the system in effect. Metal yoke here, composite here, microfiber, metal, composite. These various layers, when all sandwiched together, have a nice harmonious way of, and no pun intended.
It's very inert.
Yes. It's still lightweight, and that was something we wanted to do, is increase. Something we wanted to do is increase and enhance the comfort. 800 is very comfortable. 700 is even more lightweight, still built like a tank, very robust. Actual screws mounting the headband to the headband to the chassis here. So they still took all the Sennheiser efforts to make this a true audiophile headphone, but really it's lightweight, it's comfortable. The most comfortable headphone we've ever made, I think.
Yeah, I find it to be at least as comfortable as the HD 800. I'll have to do more comparisons directly to see which one I think is more comfortable, but at that point, I can wear either of them for many hours.
We got to find a way to measure that and put a number on it.
Yeah.
Comfort 1 through 11 with a letter scale of some kind. That's not a bad idea.
So what's the price? I don't know that we discussed that yet.
Price is $999, and that's sub $1,000, not $9.99. But yeah, $999. It sits nicely between the HD 800 and 650. We do believe this is a significant upgrade from a 650, and you're pretty close to an 800 at this point. So a fantastic value.
Yeah, I'm actually really thrilled with it, and I will have one. So, all right. Well, that's Eric Palonen. This is a Sennheiser HD 700, and it's one of my new favorite headphones. So thanks for taking the time, Eric.
Thank you for having us, as always, and thanks for stopping by.
All right.